have Jane Sterk with us this afternoon, and she's the leader of the BC Green Party. Thanks for coming. We agreed to discuss democracy.
Yes.
Which is one of the basis of our political system.
At least we hope that it is, and it certainly needs to improve if that's going to be the case.
That's right. So the question that I'd like to explore with you is, do you think that people in general, people that vote for you, are they really ready to participate in the decision-making, political decision-making of issues that you will be, if elected, legislating? Are people really ready, or some people think people don't know what they want?
I'm not sure it's an either or. I think that many of us don't know what we want, but we do want to participate. I think we've seen evidence of that, the Blue Bridge in Victoria, the HST, where people felt that they wanted a say in what governments were going to do. And so, yes, I do think people are ready. I think they want to. And I think they're just waiting for some sort of an invitation that makes it easy for them to participate. I think people may have to develop some trust in an MLA, for instance. If I put out an invitation for people to come, say, to participate in a citizens' assembly for Victoria Beacon Hill, I think there may be some skepticism about, you know, will she really listen to me? Will she really attempt to find out the diversity of opinion in Victoria Beacon Hill? Will she really use our ideas going into the legislature? But I think that we can develop strategies that will make people want to get involved.
Yeah. The main example people use is the referendum 13 in California. And apparently the referendum was, do you want to cut taxes? And most people say, yeah, we want to cut taxes. But then they didn't have money for schools, so they had to cut services. So people here in British Columbia look at California and say, oh yeah, a referendum like in California, eh?
I think referendums, referenda are a very imperfect way to get consensus. They're a very ineffective way to really find out what people think, what people want from their democracy. And that's why I think we need to have longer term methods that allow us to discuss together the major issues that we're facing and to come to consensus. What we want is a variety of opinion. We want to get that diversity, because out of that diversity, we will get better suggestions for what we could do to solve the problems that we face. So I'm not a fan of referendums. I think that we need to actually get citizens engaging in the process, feeling that their opinion matters, coming to some sense of understanding how we could work together effectively. And there are all kinds of strategies to do that. You know, in Iceland, since they've had their financial crisis, they've been reaching out to the people of Iceland, and granted it's only 600,000 people, but every time legislation is coming to their parliament now, they go out to the people and using social media and other means say, what do you think? And people there are hungry to get involved, and I think we would find the same thing in this area.
When you say people get involved, how is that in practical terms? How is that they get involved? Because I see a referendum as people getting involved and answering and saying, this is the way I want, and here is my vote on the referendum, whether it's a paper or a computerized system. But when you say people get involved, how are they going to get involved?
So a referendum generally asks people a yes or no question. And just fundamentally as a result of that, it creates a division between people. It puts a yes camp against a no camp. And that may be something that we want, but it's not something that I want.
Can we have a referendum where you have 5 or 6 or 10 answers? Not just yes or no, but maybe, perhaps, if I change this or if I change that, is it possible to find what people want without having yes and no?
It is possible, a multiple choice. suggestions for what could be done differently. But then you have to know that each of those choices represents something that matters. And as I've said, you may disagree with me, but I'm not a fan of referendums as a way to unite people around the major issues that we face as a people. I'm in favor of face-to-face discussions, opportunities to dialogue, opportunities to get involved. And a referendum is generally something that is a distinct one-time only proposition. It doesn't require that citizens get involved and stay involved for the long term. And so if I get elected MLA in Victoria Beacon Hill, I'm going to use strategies that I think will build consensus, will involve people, will get people out to events, will make the process of democracy fun.
We have with us today Chris Ricketts, the Liberal candidate for Esquimalt Royal Roads. Royal Roads, right. And he has agreed to come and discuss with us or tell us his opinion on democracy, more specifically direct democracy, because what we have right now is representative democracy, but there are questions about having direct democracy. And I asked Chris whether he thinks that his constituents are ready to make their own decisions, their own political legislation. And what do you think, Chris?
So I believe that the job of the MLA is to represent the people that elected that person. Complex issues come forward in government, and I think it's hard to be run by every member in the riding. So it's a job of the MLA to listen to the riding, form a consensus of opinion, and take that opinion forward to government to get those views expressed.
How do you form a consensus? What does it mean, form a consensus?
Just by engaging with the people in your riding. I've been door knocking for the campaign since the middle of January. And I've said, everyone, when I have an office, it'll be open all the time. I want to speak to people. I'll do regular weekend coffee talks so that people are engaged with their representative.
You mean talk to you? That's
yes.
Engaging, talking to you.
Yes, engaged to me. Because I would be the voice for my riding, and I think it's important that I hear all my riding and see what their values are and what they think is important for them to carry forward.
So, but you don't think that people are ready to make their own decisions, as in voting on referendums and plebiscites?
Yes, I believe there is a place for referendums on big items. Amalgamation is a hot topic in the region right now. So I believe that's something that would go to referendum and let the people decide what that would look like, what kind of amalgamation, whether it's just services or administration. And then again, that voice be taken through to the legislature for the representative. So I believe if the question is out there, people would have a good chance to say what they believe is best.
Right, right. They say it, but you don't count the votes because you will go and represent them. So if there is a referendum, we count votes. But if it's just an engagement of conversation, you don't count the votes. So I hear you saying that in some cases a referendum is called for, but in other cases that are not so crucial, like changing a light bulb in a corner or something,
no, absolutely.
Then you don't need
the
that.
big referendum is coming up May 14th. People are going to vote for who they want as their representative. Like you say, big items that are important to everyone should be addressed in referendum, but I do not believe you can run government by continually going to the people. That is what government exists for. Yeah, the bureaucratic government makes a lot of executive decisions that doesn't require a referendum or even consensus of the people. I mean, if you have to repair a pipe that breaks in the middle of the road, you don't go and ask people, should we fix it? So there are things that are obviously going to be decided by executive decision. But most of the legislation that MLAs pass, I think they're important. And do you think that people should participate in that decision making of new legislation? Again, they participate by electing the person that they think will best represent their views, and then that person goes forward. So if it was a big issue that needed consensus, then maybe that should be done by referendum. Referendums are very expensive. So if it's an important issue, absolutely. But like I say, we can't go monthly asking for small items. It has to be the representative. That's how our government works, is that you elect the representative and they take your views forward.
We are here with Susan Lowe, candidate, Green candidate for Esquimalt Royal Roads. And she has agreed to come and talk with us about democracy. And more specifically, we're going to explore the differences between representative democracy and direct democracy. So you know what we have right now is representative democracy, but there is a lot of call for direct democracy. Yes. That is when people make decisions, not yes. just the MLAs. So the question is, do you think that people in general, the candidates, not the candidates, your constituents, are ready to make those decisions?
I think people are getting ready to make more decisions. If we're going to go to direct democracy, we have a lot of work to do in how we prepare the information and how we make sure that we are getting objective information to constituents so that they can fairly inform themselves. Right now, a lot of the information that comes out when there are referendums or other initiatives is coming from one side or another side of the question, and so any information that comes out is clearly biased in one or the other way. There is, right now we don't have an objective, non-partisan source of information about government budgets or about many other things that we would like to ask voters for.
So do you think that because we don't have that enough information for your constituents, therefore they're not prepared to do decision making?
I think that a lot of people would like to make a decision feeling like they're informed. I speak to people who say that the reason they don't vote is because they either haven't got the time or they don't feel that they fully understand what the parties are talking about, and that their choice wouldn't be an informed choice necessarily, but they'd like to make an informed choice.
Okay, so you think that there's some hope there?
I think there's a lot of hope. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Right, we don't have all the tools that direct democracy needs, but you think that people could be informed enough to make those decisions? I mean, intellectually they're ready. Yeah,
at different levels. When we talk about direct democracy, you have to consider that there are some decisions that are of huge importance and have lasting impact, and those are the ones that we should try the hardest to make through direct democracy. So decisions about taxes, about major directions in government, these are the things that direct democracy should be used for. There are other things that, we put a government in place to manage society's resources and to then turn around and say, we're going to have direct democracy on every issue is sort of abdicating the responsibility of government.
All right, so we have Carole James, the NDP candidate for Victoria Swan Lake.
Victoria Beacon Hill.
Victoria Beacon Hill. Stand corrected, sorry.
No problem.
I invited you to discuss a little bit of democracy. And as you know, we have representative democracy. That's why you want to be a representative. And there is this alternative system which is called direct democracy. And obviously the NDPs in 1996 brought in this recall and referendum. So there is some sympathy for somehow accepting some direct democracy, some referendums, and even some recall. The question that comes to mind is, are people ready to participate? because I hear from some other candidates that they say, well, people are busy in their own lives and people don't know what as much as the MLAs do. So what do you think? Are people ready for direct democracy?
I believe people are more than ready to be more engaged than they are now. And I think it's more the political systems and the politicians who have to catch up to the people, and not the people catch up to the politicians. I think the public is more than ready to be engaged. I think we just have to look at more effective ways to engage them. I don't think it's either or. I think we have to find better ways to give them opportunities to be involved, not at the end. Because often what I see governments doing is they involve the public when they already have an answer. So they'll say we're going to go out and consult, but they take an answer out to consult on. I'd like to see governments go in with the question. Here's the challenge that we face in society today. Let's look at all the solutions that might be out there. That's true engagement. That's real engagement for the public. And I think we've got structures in the legislature that haven't been used for the last number of years that could be utilized. We have standing committees, for example, in the legislature. They're already existing. They have members from all political parties in the legislature on them. You could actually send them out to the communities to consult.
You remember the consultation, they called it the conversation on health.
Yes.
There was a consultation, but what was the end result of that?
It was a report that sat on the shelf.
Okay, so are we running in the same risk that we say, well, we're going to consult, but then in the end, that's all it is. It's a consultation, but it's not necessarily something that's going to influence the behavior of the government.
And that's why you have to change how consultation is viewed. Consultation by governments is often viewed as, I'll tell you what I want you to believe, and then I'll come back and put a report together that shows just that. I think the more important way, true consultation, is done when you go out to the public to say, here's a challenge we have. We need to reduce our healthcare dollars, or we want to look at opportunities to improve healthcare in British Columbia. What ideas do you have? You gather those, you give people an opportunity for a free-range discussion, but then you also commit to go back to them and talk about what you heard. And then talk about how you're going to implement, why you could do things, why you couldn't do other things. That would make the difference, rather than simply going out and gathering people's ideas and putting it in a binder and sitting it on a shelf somewhere.
Christina Bates from the Liberal Party is the candidate for Victoria Swan Lake. I got it right this time. And she is here to discuss with us about democracy. And as we all know, representative democracy is the present system, but more and more people are calling for direct democracy, which means that people would have the right to participate in decision making through plebiscites and referendums, polling, whatever. So my question to you is, do you think that people are ready to participate directly in the legislating of new laws?
Well, I think that maybe not. And the reason I say that is just because of the amount of voter turnout we already have. There don't seem to be, it's not a highly engaged community. Perhaps having more referendums may engage them. I'm not sure about that. Holding more referendums does mean that people are going to have to step it up. It also does mean that it's going to be a lot more costly. And so that's also something that needs to be considered too.